and welcome to this episode of Career Podcasts with Mentorship. I'm your host Medha, and together we explore the career journeys, milestones, and challenges of some truly inspiring people across industries. Self care and grooming were always booming spaces, and men have historically been major contributors to the demand for products in the space. But interestingly, personal hygiene is the next big boom within that industry. The Indian personal hygiene market itself is expected to reach $15 billion in valuation by 2023. On today's episode, we have a firebrand founder who's cracking, pun not intended, into the intimate hygiene space for men. You saw their swag on Shark Tank. You watched them bag investments from some stellar sharks. And today, these unconventional founders are all set to change the game in their space with their unconventional startup. Super excited to welcome Ananya Maloo, co-founder of male intimate hygiene startup Nuutjob. Welcome to the show, Ananya.
Hi, Medha. I'm so excited to be a part of this podcast. So glad that I get to do this with you today.
Likewise, Ananya, super excited to dive in. And of course, before we start, how many such lame puns related to nut job have you heard in your life?
It wasn't a lame one. I think I was really smoking when you did say that. So I'm so glad that we're getting on to the idea of
Right
people.
pudding.
Yeah, people really talking about balls quite outrightly and without being ashamed. So I'm really glad that we're bringing about that change. For starters, am somebody who very subtly or not so subtly try to slip in, nut job puns into my conversation. So I'm sure I'll try to do that today with our conversation. But I'm so glad that you're on a very similar page as I am. So yeah.
We're excited to have the ballsy founder Ananya Maloo on this chat. Sorry, I just had to get it out of the system.
No, I'm sure we'll use a lot of it in the
We
podcast.
pretty
So
much will do.
I am excited.
We honestly can't begin without addressing the nut in the room. You both are two women building products for male intimate hygiene. Now, startup founders often try to get into the consumer's mind, but interestingly, you both are trying to get into men's pants the way you often put it. A sentence I really didn't think I'd ever be saying on this podcast, but
Well,
there's always a first.
yeah.
Could you walk us through the story and the genesis of Nuutjob? Because it's one of the most interesting startup stories I've ever come across.
The idea germinated back in 2020 during the lockdown when we saw a personal problem at home. The personal problem was our father was using a lot of talcum powder, the
Right.
use of which resulted in a very slippery floor covered in powder dust. So I think because we slipped quite a few times, and then I think out of irritation we asked them, "Ki, why are you using so much talcum powder?" Imagine having that daughters ask them such a question. They were quite coy about it,
True.
and I think it took guts for them also to come out and tell us that this is why they were using it. I'd like to obviously give it to them for being ballsy enough to come and talk to us about it. And out of curiosity, we asked them, is there no replacement to talcum powder? Because that's a very basic question that you ask.
Yeah.
अगर ये नहीं है तो इसके लिए कोई solution है क्या?
Correct.
That's very basic, and that's when we figured that the entire segment of male intimate hygiene is widely unaddressed here in India. People don't know about it, and if they do, then they're using tricks and tips that don't really work and actually cause a little more mess than they should. And that's when we figured that internationally, manscaping and intimate grooming is now becoming a thing, and it's
Correct.
become a really big industry in the West. And we thought, ki, why not here in India, where I'm sure as women and men have seen people scratch their balls in public and not bat an eyelid about it. And it's just
True.
made so common that men themselves don't question something like this. But we figured, why not do something like this in India? It takes a lot of balls to come out and do this.
In your case, being women doing it.
Exactly. If women doing it and just a brand coming out of it is something that they'd not thought of. But when we started talking to a lot of people, we figured that it's something that you're really ashamed talking about.
Right.
It's similar to women asking for pads, right? Like,
Correct.
or, maybe just generally asking somebody, can you maybe check the behind of my, pants or my
Right.
shirt or like whatever that you're wearing. So we figured, why not talk about it? Because menstruation is something that's being openly spoken about here in India
Hmm. Hmm.
now, and there are
Hmm.
people who are making films about it, and
Correct.
it's
Correct.
it's
And
it's
it's
being.
taken a while to get to this point, honestly.
Exactly. We need to start somewhere, right? There needs to be some groundbreaking that needs to happen. And what Anushree and I did is that we decided to put in our money. We didn't ask for, somebody else to invest in the company at that time.
Interesting.
We put in our money that we'd saved over a period of time and
Hmm.
started the company. It was bootstrapped at 5 lakh rupees, and we broke our LICs to,
Wow.
fund that job. Because, as a woman, there's a lot that entails when you become an entrepreneur. Because
Absolutely.
a lot of times, I have seen women who've been like friends or family of friends that have been married into certain households, which
Hmm.
ask women not to work for certain
Of
jobs, and they
course.
said,
Yeah.
why don't you start something of your own, something in the baking industry, something in the fashion industry, something that is expected of women to get
Absolutely.
into.
The stereotype still exists.
Correct. We're happy with you maybe starting a bakery. Why don't you do something
The
like
softer
this?
businesses. Yeah.
Correct. Very
Hmm.
softer businesses, very gendered jobs have been thrust upon people if they're married. So
Correct.
what I figured is this is not what I'd want to do, going forward. I usually say that it took two vaginas to change the ball game.
Two Ahmedabad girls breaking into a male dominated entrepreneurial space, catering to a male audience. What's it like being a female founder?
As a woman,
Yeah.
you constantly have this urge to prove, urge to do
Absolutely.
something that's different, urge to get that respect.
True.
Oh my god, you did it. I'll
Very
just
true.
give you a very recent example that I started working out at a gym. The same day a guy joined with me, so
Okay.
the coach was a little more lenient towards me, ki nahi 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 aap 85 karo, and that guy was being drilled, why aren't you doing it, you're a guy,
Ah.
finish it. So I'm like,
Hmm.
okay, why wasn't that expected out of me? Why do I need to seem so fragile? I did those 100 and I proved ki listen, I can do it, but there's constantly this urge
There
to
is. Yeah.
prove
True.
that you can do something. This was something that really helped me put in that extra effort to make this company work, because it's not just a segment that I'm addressing, but also what is expected out of women to do, right?
There's this predisposition that all women founders or professionals struggle with, right? Because there has been a constant narrative we are privy to from a very early age. And
Correct.
that creates that predisposition in our lives, which honestly could be a hindrance to a lot of people's growth and success in their careers. But then there are people like you who decided to turn it on its head and say that we're going to change the narrative.
While we were doing this, Anushree and I were at an age that our parents had started looking out for rishtas. So when we actually just launched the website, there was somebody who told my mother, I think you should pull down their images. They want to do the business, yes, but don't put up images. It might just hamper you in getting certain rishtas. So
Yeah.
my mom got a little like, oh, somebody's told me this and that. I know what you're doing is good, but I'm not sure if you should put your images up there. So
Hmm.
I told her, listen, if you want me or Anushree to go to a family, then
Hmm.
you should be finding a family that's accepting of what we do rather
Exactly.
than making do of what we do, right? It doesn't
For
have
how long are you going to play the image?
exactly. So I told her, listen, consider people who are not happy with this as a red flag. You're going into a family where you obviously will spend a lot of your time with. So obviously go to a family that is accepting of what you do, celebrating what you do, and constantly helping you to strive bigger and better things in life. And
Absolutely.
if things don't work well, they're always there to be a rock support. Because I've seen quite a lot, we had so many people or friends completely shun an idea like this before we went on to Shark Tank. And after Shark Tank,
Wow.
like, oh, I know these girls, these are my friends. In a
Wow. Is it
certain
is it
way,
just TV ratification that is all that
yeah.
it takes?
Also, in a certain way, I felt like, boo, yeah, I changed your no's into yeses. And that's very important as an entrepreneur to turn people's no's into yeses. Yeah.
Absolutely. Speaking of changing the narrative and addressing it head on, Shark Tank fans will rank your iconic pitch presentation on the show as one of their top favorites. For our listeners, if you're yet to check out the show, Ananya and Anushree enter this super serious pitch presentation room, scratching their intimate part, and they instantly have the sharks' undiluted attention as they do so because they're live demonstrating a real issue faced by half the population today. How did you both come up with this left of center pitch presentation?
So while we were ideating on what we wanted to do for the script, we made a very sample pitch where we gave out certain stats that so many men this, so many men that, why not
Hmm.
this? And we figured it was quite boring to us only to listen to.
Right.
And we're like, why would somebody listen to this? Why would they not switch, just switch the channels, or, maybe forward something on OTT? We figured, why aren't we doing what our brand really does? Being funny and in your face funny. That's when we made our script. The entire idea of us entering, scratching our imaginary balls was my father's idea. He said, I think you should do that. I think that's when you'll, really get everybody's attention, and they'll be like, what are these jokers really up to?
Yeah, I think it's safe to say your dad's the swag element behind Nuutjob.
He clearly is. A lot of people remember my dad from the pitch, beta tumhari company hai, you take the call. And so many
Right.
people really liked that attitude.
Yeah, that was a special moment. Yeah.
Correct. So, I mean, in that moment, I'm like, ये तो काफी normal conversation होता है हमारा. And then I figured, you know what? Actually, we come from a very privileged relationship that we share with our family.
Yeah.
In the sense of them being okay with talking about all of these things with us. I think for me, it's very important that you have your constant support systems with you.
So
It could be friends, it could be family, but always have somebody, because there'll be a lot of people who will bring you down.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. In fact, more so if you're someone who's trying to break into an unconventional space with a startup like yours.
Honestly, it was a risky move, right? Because when you see the first few reactions of the sharks, you're instantly exposed to what people think of intimate hygiene. The taboo is very real. And to my mind, it's also the leading issue that you as a brand must be facing, because you're trying to instill a behavioral change in your potential customer who needs to accept that this is a problem he has. And then only can you convert him into a user. So, how do you guys at Nuutjob address the awareness building aspect of the products you sell today? And how does your consumer feel that you as a brand are actually, front faced by two women who are trying to solve a man's problem?
So I think, Medha, what really matters for us as a brand is, yes, the story of two women running it is something that's really nice. But I think the people who'll come back and buy the product are simply going to rely on what the quality of the product really is. So yes, after a period of time, I'm sure this is something that's going to become really normal. Something
Correct.
that I believe is, just cut out on that extra slack that's cut for women. The moment that you say, oh, she's a female entrepreneur, you just make it sound exotic. The moment that it's normalized, people will really treat you the way that you're supposed to, in a
On
way.
merit.
Okay, treat them for the merit that you have,
Yes.
rather than garner gender merit. There's a difference between equity and equality.
Yeah.
What a lot of people don't understand, that women need equity before they ask for equality, because the
Absolutely.
kind of privileges that men have got in whatever similar background that they've grown up, women will always need a little more equity before they ask for equality.
What a beautiful point you made on the equity versus equality debate. And I feel like if men also make that argument, women included, saying that
Right.
men and women should be put on an equal footing. But before you get into that argument, you need to understand the individual requirements of both genders before you get into that debate, right? And that's where the equity discussion comes in.
Correct. So I think the moment that I am looked at just as an entrepreneur, as Nuutjob grows, is something that I would have really achieved, because then I'm not getting the gendered slack that people think like, oh, a woman has really made it big. I would just want like, oh, somebody's made it really big, and
Correct.
somebody's
And
educated.
entrepreneurs made it big.
Correct. So
Yeah.
I would strive for it, but initially, when you do start something, I'm happy that I got that gendered slack that was cut for me, because that helped me put out my story. That helped me put out what the brand is really all about. But going forward, it's the product that will shine. It's the product that will get people come back. For my brand to really, stand the test of time, it has to be what it promises, and I think that's something that's really important. What we plan to do for Nuutjob is to obviously educate people on why it's really important. But education is not through stats that we have in mind ki,
Yeah.
इतने प्रतिशत ही लोग ये करते, इतने प्रतिशत लोग वो करते.
Huh.
I
Yeah.
don't want it to be another tobacco ad that you make fun of. I want it to be that you're having fun while watching it, and it's something that leaves behind a certain thought while you've watched it. So we're masking it with humor. While we were doing our research for how we'd want Nuutjob to be, what the brand ideology is, what we thought of, we figured that what is another taboo topic here in India. I figured Durex is a brand that's doing well, educating people about safe sex, and not just safe sex, but about a lot of different things in the sexual wellness category of things.
Right.
So,
Right.
and they do it with humor, and that is something that stays with me. I do not know of any other companies that are talking about sex the way that Durex
I
is
agree.
doing
Yeah.
it. And I figured this is exactly what I want Nuutjob to do, to talk about male intimate hygiene, but it's masked in humor.
That's actually amazing, because when you think of Nuutjob's product range, these aren't one-time use products. There's a long-term relationship that the brand is trying to build with their consumers, right? What kind of a consumer experience do you aspire to create with Nuutjob that sustains this long-term relationship? Because I remember you mentioned on Shark Tank as well that the focus areas are right now are educating and entertaining, right?
Correct.
And that's the swag value that you bring in terms of attributing a coolness factor and shunning the taboo around the subject. But how do you attempt to make this a long term relationship with your male consumers?
These are not things that we've invented. These are not something like, oh wow, this is a cool invention. These
Right.
are just products that we're giving as an alternative to already existing products
Yeah.
here in market. Like
Hmm.
talcum powder, it's super messy, it does not stay on for a long time. We've got a liquid powder for you
Hmm.
that works around the same lines as what a talcum powder does, but has way more benefits than using a regular talcum powder. That it stays on for longer, controls sweat, it controls it has a really good smell that really eliminates the odor factor out of it. We've
Yeah.
got a deodorant spray rather than using a regular deo spray which has alcohol in it. Alcohol being a very drying element, you will
Hmm.
obviously at the end of the day not just have a little sting or an irritation because you've used alcohol based deo spray, but also have an itchy skin because your skin has become over dried. So you've got
Right.
a deo spray that really takes care of you without any alcohol in it, works on keeping you fresh and dry behind your fly. We're offering solutions that are made for the modern man on the go. We've got one product that eliminates the use of 4 different products, like a shampoo, body wash. We've got all of that in our 4-in-1 intimate wash, so you don't need to buy all those products. It's a more sensible and efficient solution than buying 10 different things. You just pack one when you're traveling. Don't need to go through an entire workload of things to keep your intimates clean. We've got the easiest but the most efficient way to keep your
Absolutely.
intimates clean and bring you back in the game, if I may say so. So
Yeah, and also I think that the nature of user you have is slightly different, right? Because when you look at a female consumer, you'll be able to sell to her a multiple set of products and she'd happily pick it up. But on
Right.
the other hand, I'm sure your male consumer is one high efficiency product is something that could really work with them, rather than saying that this is a whole array of products that you potentially need. So high performance, high functionality products is something that could really work.
Right. You need to seem to make it cool for men. For
Yeah.
women, it harps on the idea that women are flawed.
The entire marketing strategy for FMCG products.
Absolutely. Women from the very beginning are told that you're flawed, you need to use 10 layers of makeup to look like how you're supposed to be. And men, on the other hand, they don't go through a certain pressure. So, marketing products to men, which go on the idea that there's a certain flaw in you, needs to go in a very different way compared to how things that, really elevate your macho ness. You don't need to be macho to use Nuutjob. It's an everyday product. And if you
Correct.
feel macho on the inside, I'm sure you'll be macho on the outside.
And that's such an interesting switch from the male marketing narrative, honestly. How has Shark Tank impacted business for Nuutjob? Have sales seen an upswing?
Great uptick in sales. What happened for Nuutjob after Shark Tank was that there was a validation for an entire segment like this.
Right.
Prior to this, people obviously didn't know about what the segment is all about. I'm sure they were looking for products and they were searching it, and obviously that's how we were a little discoverable on Amazon. But now that Shark Tank happened, a lot of people know about segment like this because we would have taken a lot of time had Shark Tank not really happened to
Sure.
really bring about a difference.
Yeah.
But not just validation, but also acceptance of two women doing something like this was something that we really were happy to see in coming. There's a lot more seriousness that has come on the brand for us. It's been a very different feeling for us to grow a brand like this, to put in money where we never thought in a year's time this is the kind of attention that we'd get.
Absolutely. I think startups who did come on to Shark Tank were also in a similar stage as Nuutjob in terms of the fact that you guys were also just in the testing phase. And there might have been a challenging journey from there, then Shark Tank happening, and then actually delivering on that demand by building a robust distribution channel. Is this an issue that you faced as well post the
Yeah,
show?
absolutely. I mean, the kind of orders that we got the day that it aired, actually, they started coming in 2 days before because they'd started
The
promoting the
teasers.
episode, right?
Yeah,
They'd done
yeah,
teasers. So
yeah.
I think that was something that really garnered a lot of attention, like for from people to see, ki, Acha, what is this brand all about?
Right,
Right.
right.
We figured, ki, "ठीक है, chalo, this is fine, doable." The night that was airing, we had the laptop right next to us, and the moment that it aired, and the number of people that I saw on my website, and the way that it was increasing was crazy
Wow.
amazing.
What a lovely feeling, right?
Yeah, it's truly a very overwhelming experience, to be honest, Medha. This is not something that you were expecting. Again,
Yeah.
our episode aired on the 31st of December, when I felt like shit,
No
yaar,
one's
agar
going to be,
ek do din pehle,
oh.
ek do din pehle aata, तो then we would have gotten a different kind of reaction, or यानी बाद में आता. But
Correct.
on 31st, there were so many people who were watching. The kind of orders that are poured in were like
Unbelievable.
crazy, because I remember I didn't have the capacity to do the kind of orders that we'd gotten. We also had very little quantity in place. So we sold out on the very third day. And this
Wow.
is starting New Year's with all of this. And again, I didn't have a team back then. So Anushree and I were doing everything, generating invoices, packing orders, doing a lot of
Wow.
communication that was happening, because a lot of people are calling you at that time.
Yeah.
And you need to be on social media, in the sense that you need to post on social media, you need to be active somewhere.
Right.
So we went super crazy, and Anushree was getting married just a month later. She was getting married in Feb. We didn't sleep for like an entire month. Who says yes to sleep when you've got so much work? And I think, I was excited to get up in the morning and check emails and reply
Right.
to calls. It's just your baby. And I think I'm a
Absolutely.
very overprotective mama bear. All of
You've
this.
spoken like a true startup founder.
I'm so glad. It's only growing since, Shark Tank, and a lot of it we owe to the people who've used the product and are coming back to us. So the story of Anushree and I doing it is different, but I think as a brand, what the product really does is super important than what Anushree and I do.
Could not agree more. I think the narrative around women doing this is, I think, more of a personal gratification and personal victory, and the rest is all nut job. And it should, like you said, stay center stage in whatever narrative is associated with nut job going forward. Speaking about the larger male grooming industry as a whole, the industry has really picked up and become a solid market. Intimate hygiene is now also slowly picking up, right? You have other players in the market as well, like Skin Elements, like Swish, and many more that are sprouting up in the space. What really set Nutjob apart from other players in the market?
I think the name itself is something that really helps us. We take an example. If you're thinking about beards or grooming, you're thinking about beardo. For younger brands, if what you do is in the name, then I think there's a certain recognition. And at these other brands, they're not premised around male intimate hygiene. They've got their best sellers to be other products. They're not continuously focusing on the intimate hygiene segment. What we've got is a very vanilla product. What we've got is an entire basket of products that make a hygiene routine for you, from washing to deodorizing to cleansing, offering an entire kit that really helps you stay clean, fresh, and dry behind your fly throughout.
I love that line.
When we were 3 products old, the ideas of developing new products came from what the customers really asked. Once you've created a dialogue, people come and talk to you about it. I think that is what is really helping us be a little on top of our game as compared to other people in the industry. But I'm really happy that people are getting into the entire segment. Like, I know Wheat is somebody who's trying to venture into this, and it's
Bombay
amazing.
Shaving Company, a couple of other larger
Yeah.
players in the segment as well. Yeah.
Correct.
You're
So
right.
they're more in the manscaping, trimming, and
Yeah.
hair grooming part of it. We're more in the hygiene building routine of things. They will only help us widen the market. They'll help
Absolutely.
us educate people. I mean, see, it'll only bring our customer acquisition
Cost
come
down.
down a
Yeah.
little
True. Yeah.
lower to what is compared. But what we want to do before they come in for things that we're already doing is to build that brand presence, to build that product presence.
And I think the space you are in, this Ananya, is also a very, very high risk segment given the behavioral change attributed with actually making a sale. So what a lot of other players typically have been doing is cross subsidizing across their different product ranges, right? Selling the rather safer products like the other male grooming products that there was already a ready market for, and then cross subsidizing it to sell, maybe intimate washes and stuff. You guys are actually taking the narrative head on by selling a full product range that addresses a taboo subject, coupled with the fact that the sector is really booming. I think a Nuutjob's going to go places.
Thank you so much. I really, really, really hope that it does.
The super cool front face that you see on Nuutjob's Instagram is actually Ananya's brainchild. The entire brand building narrative has actually been done by Ananya.
Yeah, I think coming up with content was the most fun for me. I'd never really imagined that I am going to talk about this quite openly. And it was quite a ballsy move for me. We got a little nutty when we were doing the website.
Speaking of which, I remember you telling me that you've been an introvert for a larger part of your life. And now, cut to, we see you and Anushree addressing this super embarrassing problem, hopefully not going forward, head on national television by physically demonstrating it. Now, that's an incredible journey to have traversed. How did you both see your lives change on a personal front post Shark Tank?
It's been a complete, 180-degree change for us. I feel I'm fueled with a lot more confidence compared to before what Shark Tank happened. When, people come and really appreciate the fact of what we're doing, I think that again is something that I feel like I should constantly keep bettering ourselves, because there's so much that people are relying on. I've had so many women come and tell us that, because of you, I quit my job. I've started doing this because this has been my baby project and I've never really had the guts to do it. It's very nice to come and read those messages and to see the kind of faith that people have put. There's so much that we have to prove now, right? So much more crazy that we want to bring. I have started talking to a lot more people, and I really do enjoy doing that. It's so nice to constantly keep talking about something that you're so passionate about, right?
Yeah, I remember saying this to you at the get-go also when we connected prior to this podcast, that no one will believe that you were an introvert.
It's also on the kind of vibe that you bring, Medha. It's not
You're just being too
me,
kind.
but no, I'm being very honest.
That's incredibly sweet of you. I think this love for whatever we're working towards. And I think that is something that's so infectious when I chat with you, because the passion behind what you and Anushree do. I mean, we've seen it on television, but I don't think the world has seen even 0.5% of what really goes on behind that passion. Speaking of which, Shark Tank took the nation by storm and created an infectious buzz around the concept of starting up, right? And season 2 is coming up end of this year. What would be your top tips to entrepreneurs looking to participate and entrepreneurs looking to get funded?
You need to be the best salesman that you can be for your brand when you do go to Shark Tank. Make sure that you're making things easy for people when they're listening to what you have to say. And we used the humorous way. You don't have to be humorous. It does not have to be OTT at all times.
Yeah.
It also depends on what is it that you're trying to say, what is it that you're trying to bring, but always having a very different way of portraying it is something that really helps you stand out amongst the others. Like, I remember something that really moved me was when Prathmesh from Tinkerbell Labs was a part of it. And that was something that not just made me smile, but made me cry also, because it was something that made me connect with not just the product, but also the people who were selling it. Sell it in the most unique way possible, but also talk about the USPs that set you apart from the others. I think the moment that you ooze confidence is when you've won half the battle. The moment that you faff or you stutter or you're unsure about things, that's when people are also unsure about the brand that you are in. You know your facts, right? You've got everything at the tip of your tongue. Don't be scared to be different is what I'd say. Don't play it safe, because this is something that comes on reality television, and Indian audience is used to not getting the regular mundane stuff, right?
The leading principle for you both and Nuutjob, right? Don't be afraid to be different. I think pretty much sums up, Nuutjob as a brand and yours and Anushree's entrepreneurial journey. Ananya, it's been so inspiring chatting with you. You and Anushree, in whatever forum you project yourselves, you both demonstrate with such ease how dedication and solid belief can help you achieve anything. And getting an early stage investment on Shark Tank from some stellar investors is nothing short of that. And I know the journey is only just begun.
From me and the entire team of Mentors here, thank you so much for offering your time on this episode, Ananya. It's been a pleasure chatting with you.
Thank you so much, Medha. I had the most lovely time talking to you. And again, like I didn't really feel like I was talking to somebody that I've never met. I think this came out very organically and very naturally.
Cannot wait to take this conversation offline over a coffee or a drink soon.
I would love that.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Career Podcasts with Mentorsphere. We hope you enjoyed tuning in just as much as we did putting it together for you. Mentorsphere is a platform that connects students and early stage working professionals to industry mentors for career guidance. If you're looking to connect with an industry mentor from your sector, head over to the link in the description and book your slot with our mentors today. Thank you, and we look forward to meeting you on the next episode of Career Podcasts.